Recently, I shared a video about how the autism spectrum doesn't look like this, but it actually looks something like this. And if you haven't yet, I definitely recommend watching that video to understand more about the autism spectrum and what it actually looks like. But today I want to talk about how my autistic profile helps me mask and has made my autism more invisible, which led me to not receiving a diagnosis when I was a child and only receiving a diagnosis when I was an adult. Some of our autistic traits can be more easily observed from the outside looking in. And that would include things like challenges with our communication, more apparent and frequent stimming, and also struggles with processing information and delayed processing and things like that. And as you can see based on my autistic profile, these things aren't as challenging for me as, say, another person on the autism spectrum who might struggle more with communication, or who might have more apparent stims, or someone who might be non-speaking or may only communicate with a few words at a time. And as you can see, I struggle a lot with sensory processing and sensory overload. And while I can communicate pretty clearly, I still struggle a little bit in social settings. I tend to struggle a lot with executive functioning, and I would describe myself as extremely rigid, and I need to be in my routine. And these things can be less apparent, more hidden, more invisible, things that happen in the internal as opposed to behaviors that can be observed on the outside. And I think that because of the way my autism presents specifically for me, I may not show up as the stereotypical autistic person that is portrayed in the media, how most people see autism. I would say that most of my autism is actually internal. And because of this, I was able to pass as neurotypical growing up. I learned to internalize a lot of my challenges. Even though I always felt different and I did feel a lot of shame with the things that I struggled with, I learned to suppress those things and to try to mask those things and cover up those things because I thought that I was neurotypical and I thought that I had to be a certain way. And this is just yet another example of how all of us on the autism spectrum, while we do all meet the ASD diagnostic criteria, we're still different and it still presents differently for us. And for some of us, like myself, it presents in a way that is more internal and more invisible to someone who doesn't really know me.